So Switzerland receives a stereotype of being very beautiful. And it is 100% true. It is a beautiful country. My goodness, it's so beautiful. And pretty much wherever you go there is a beautiful place. You're going to find mountains or trails of some sort, just wherever you are in the country. Some areas have, well, it depends where you are, but some areas have very beautiful lakes. And sometimes you have to take ferries across the lakes on a regular basis, which I didn't know before I went there that I'd be riding on a ferry to go from an area to an area. So that's kind of exciting. On P days, you do a lot of hiking. If you get lucky, you'll even be able to hike some Alps, which, is not only just for life, but most people don't even get that experience in a lifetime, let alone on their mission. So that we are definitely blessed if you if you get the chance to do that. Let's see what else is there to do in Switzerland. You can also, I guess, on P days you can explore cities. You can do things with members. I think in every mission in the world you can go play basketball. And Switzerland's included. You can get a couple other missionaries together and just go play basketball on the weekends. On the P days, of course. Maybe it's on a Saturday. I guess it depends on your mission. But I think it's a mistake to think that if you're called to a European mission that you're in a whole new world, you're never going to experience or do any of the same activities that you would otherwise do in America, because you'll do a lot of them. You'll play basketball, you'll do lots of similar activities, and it's fun. It's really good. So you're not totally secluded from the rest of the world. You don't need to be afraid to ask someone for directions, even if you have to do it in English. I think a lot of missionaries, they kind of get in the pride of their hearts, like they have to speak their mission language, when the truth is probably 75% of Swiss people speak English, so they will speak with you in English if you really, really need it. So it's not worth getting lost over, It wasn't language related, but I remember one time I had a train connection the first train was late, and so I missed my connection. And I ended up taking the wrong train in the wrong direction. And so instead of ending up in Zurich, I ended up in Stuttgart, which is, I think it's pretty much the distance between Las Vegas and Salt Lake. It's a good ways. And I had to find my whole way back by myself because I was on the wrong train. But that stuff happens. I think it was in 2011, we had a couple missionaries who accidentally ended up in Hungary. And usually your mission president's very understanding, and as long as it wasn't on purpose, you should be okay if that kind of stuff happens. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, but beware, it does happen. Missionaries, like anyone else, they're not perfect, and they'll do stupid stuff that gets them at the wrong side of a country or even a continent. So be aware that does exist. So if it happens to you, you're not alone. Ironically enough, my favorite food in Switzerland wasn't actually Swiss food. Switzerland, like a lot of kind of hub places in Europe, it's kind of like a melting pot. You've got lots of people, lots of cultures. And that's something that you would never know before you went there, is that, you're running into people from Sri Lanka, you're running into people from Iraq, you're running into tons of people from Turkey. My favorite meal in Switzerland is 2 words: doner kebab. You know what a doner kebab is? A doner kebab is like a hamburger filled with shredded meat instead of a burger. And it's on a spit. And they have like this razor. Almost, it kind of looks like one of those buzzers that they use to cut your hair. But they take it to this big thing of meat and they just shave it off. And they put it into a sandwich. And then they put hot sauce on it. And then you pay $8 for it. But Yeah, that was probably my favorite thing in Switzerland, because it's something that you can eat all the time there, but here you would never find it. I don't think since I've been back, it almost being a year, I don't think I've ran into one doner kebab shop. They just don't do that here. It's not popular. So that was something. You also have, I mean, you do have the Swiss delicacies. You've got, really good chocolates. You've got really good cheeses. I know it sounds weird as an American to say good cheeses because all we really think about is provolone and cheddar. But they have unlimited amounts of cheeses, and some are better than others. And you understand what it means when people say that a cheese is chalky. Like, like a chalk. It's more crumbly. It's not as chewy as American cheese. It's just a different type of cheese. It's totally different. So that's kind of fun when you first get there. Something that I like to eat for breakfast was muesli. Muesli is yogurt with oats inside of it. I don't know what I would compare that to in American, or, I mean, not necessarily American, but I don't know what else I would compare it to. It's just muesli. It's pretty much just yogurt with oats and sometimes a little bit of chocolate in it. It's really good. We all like to think that, when you go to a foreign country, you're going to eat something ridiculous that you just never think about. But actually, Swiss people are pretty, I want to say, globalized. They do have things like frog's legs or like snails, but, they realize that those aren't very good either. Yeah, so I guess they're smarter than the French. I don't know. There's lots of cheese delicacies that they have. I mean, they'll have potatoes with cheese on them. They'll have melted cheese, and you just dip bread in it. They have all sorts of different cheese delicacies that you can eat, which is great. That's you really grow to love cheese. It's weird to talk about because in America it's like the food that like you don't want to admit is really good. But yeah, I love cheese. Like, you'll love it there too, man. Yeah. You have to respect other people and their cultures. I remember one time I was in East Switzerland and I was on a bus, and as missionaries, we just the ideal is that you just talk with everyone. You don't even really think about who it is. You just talk with everyone because you like to think that you don't need to judge someone by their cover ever. And I was talking to this woman on a bus, and she was she was Muslim. She had the shawl, and we had a great conversation. But when I got off the bus, the first thing that happened is that this Turkish guy grabbed me right by the lapels, slammed me against the side of the bus. He was like, "Who are you talking to? Why are you doing this?" And I learned real quick that, you have to respect that, you don't just casually talk to everyone. You have to respect people's ideals. And in their culture, it was not ideal for me to be just talking happily with this Muslim woman. It was disrespectful. And although I didn't realize that it was, even at the time I didn't realize it. I thought he was being just rude and obnoxious. But now that I think back about it, I was like, wow, I really must have offended that man. Perhaps it was his wife and I didn't even know, So you just have to be cautious. You need to be aware of your surroundings, be aware of the people around you and the cultures that you may or may not be offending. So you do your best every day. I like to think that if you're called to Switzerland or a European mission, they expect you to be smart. All missionaries need to be smart in one sense or another, but European missionaries definitely need to be street savvy. They need to know who to talk to and to make sure that they don't offend anyone. Obviously not all missionaries are from America, but just like you'll read in Preach My Gospel, the church has kind of a stereotype of being American associated, so it's important that we don't make that worse. But yeah, just don't offend people. That's key. In Switzerland, there are a lot of refugees. A lot of them are from Nigeria, which, I don't think I ever knew that before I went to Switzerland. Well, I don't think most people do. But a lot of these refugees, they can manipulate. They can look for ways into a church organization so they can receive money, or sometimes they look for a way in so that they can stay within the country. And so it's always important to be cautious, to know that that's a real factor for a lot of the people who investigate the church. Not to say we should avoid such people, because honestly, I had two baptisms from Nigeria, and they were both great guys, and I even got to see one go through the temple. So it's not to say that they're all like that, but it's definitely something you want to be cautious of. And yeah, that just goes along with being street savvy. Another thing that you have in Switzerland is regarding the languages, is every different, we call them cantons. It's kind of like a state in America. So they have 26 cantons, and every canton has a different dialect. So that's why they encourage you not to learn a specific Swiss German, because you might speak a Swiss German in Bern, and you won't understand the Swiss German in Zurich. So for the most part, the missionaries will continue to speak High German, because everyone understands High German. But you just will never really come off as a Berner or a person from Zurich. You'll be just the High German person. But some missionaries try to learn Swiss German, especially if they're in an area for a long time. I was in Bern actually for 7 months, and by the end I picked up a little bit of Bern Swiss German, which we call Berndeutsch. But yeah, that's something that some missionaries tinker with. It's kind of fun. So High German, there's a reason why we call it High. It's kind of like the elite German. It's the clean cut German. It's, if you dare say, it's the Berliner, just the fiery, sophisticated German, I want to say. An example of High German would be, ich komme von der Stadt und ich will etwas tun. It's more, I want to say, just clean cut. Whereas Swiss German is more, I want to say hunky-bunky, if that's a word. It's more countryish. It's more rhythmic. It's more of like a country accent. But surprisingly, I would say that Swiss people come off as more sophisticated than a lot of Germans do. So it's kind of this strange, almost paradox. So Swiss German, as opposed to High German, sounds more like, wir haben heute etwas zu tun. Or I think a huge part of the Swiss German language is that they say "xi" as opposed to gewesen, which is been. So they don't have really a word for was in Swiss German. So instead they just say to become. So they pretty much everything that you say in Swiss German, if you're saying past tense, it says "xi," which isn't even a word in High German. You would never say "xi." But that's something you'll pick up. I mean, I can talk about it, but once they're there, they'll realize it and they'll see it and they'll be like, "Oh, that's what in the world that is." And I mean, that comes with time. There's nothing really you can explain or say to help someone understand that concept. So, I mean, a lot of it's just you gotta experience it. So your typical Swiss is very timely, crazy timely. And you see it everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, there's a clock somewhere, a clock tower, a digital clock. And even by the second, they're very timely in everything that they do. The trains and buses almost always arrive perfectly on time. And it's just a different atmosphere because Americans, some of us are like that, but not like that. So they're very timely. Most of them, obviously there's the stereotype that Swiss are involved in banking, and that's not far off. A lot of them are involved in banking or business to some extent. A lot of them have daytime jobs from 8 to 5. And so sometimes when they tell you I don't have time, it's really because they don't have time. They may be trying to catch a bus that comes in 30 seconds, but you wouldn't know that because you're just catching them out of context. And you have to respect that a lot of Swiss people are timely, and they will just walk away if they have to. A huge phrase that you hear you hear, "Ich muss go arbeiten," which is like, I gotta go to work, They're very aware that work comes first in their day-to-day lives. And if they're not like that, that's probably because either they're not Swiss or something's happened that's not normal. So yeah, just be aware that if a Swiss is in their normal routine, they'll be very timely, and they'll usually be going to or from work. And so that's the trick, is to find them when they're not going to and from work. So as missionaries, we really have to take advantage of holidays, take a lot of advantage of meeting members with members and communicating with the members who's ready for the gospel. Because if you, like I said before about how Swiss really, their reputation and relationships are very important. In the same sense, if you can get a Swiss member to work with you and to meet with someone, that person that you meet with is going to be very respectful, because they recognize that this member is their friend and they want to respect their friend. And so they'll meet with you and give you the utmost respect. The meetings that you have with the appointments that you have that were set with members are at least 10 times more effective than the ones that you just have casually on the street or that you kind of find yourself. Not to say that those can't be good. Sometimes great members come from that too, but definitely member work is very important. Like I said before, they're very family oriented, so the average Swiss person wants to be with their family. They want to be at home, they want to be comfortable, they want to be drinking hot tea, and they like their time alone. They like their family time, so sometimes if you interrupt that, even if it's for a good cause, say to teach their family about Jesus Christ, they may not want it, and they may be like, this is family time, you need to go. And you respect that, and you go and talk to someone else. Swiss people are very nice. They love to please. They love to be on your good side. They're very, very friendly. Oh my goodness, they're so friendly. The problem that you have, though, and I think every mission can relate to some sort of almost, I want to say, social withdrawal that you're having, a barrier, so to say, is that they can be so nice that you mistake them for having interest in the gospel, when really they're just trying to be nice to you. Whereas the Germans, they'll just tell you if they don't want to talk to you, they'll just be like, hey, pass over, like, get out of here. But the Germans, they'll continue to talk to you, or they'll have an excuse like, oh, ich habe keine Zeit, which you'll probably hear that more than anything in your mission. Ich habe keine Zeit, which means I don't have any time. But that's okay. It's a very passive way of saying I don't have interest. But you're gonna have people that don't have interest wherever you go, so it's totally fine. The Swiss people are very family oriented. They care about their reputation. Almost like the Chinese do, they are very, very loyal to their ideals. I remember talking to this one woman. She'd been living, I served next to the burned temple for about, I want to say 4 months. And there was this woman that we knew very, very well. And she wasn't a member, but she lived next to that temple pretty much since the time it was built in the 50s. So we're talking about a 60-year time span of, meeting missionaries and rejecting missionaries and meeting missionaries and saying, you know what, I respect what you guys are doing, but it's not for me. And one time, I felt like when I was there, I got really close to this woman because I would see her almost irregularly a lot. And one time, I was talking to her about truth, and I just asked her, in German, of course, if you found out that this was true, would you do something about it? And she said, ehrlich nein, which means honestly, no, I wouldn't. And that shows you how devout they are. They will live and die a lot of the times for what they are. And that's something that's very, very difficult, especially as Americans, for us to understand, that people in other countries will live and die for something even if they know it's not true. That's why it's super, super hard to talk to a devout Catholic. We used to work with a Catholic priest on our mission who knew the church was true. And for the life of him, he couldn't get himself to get baptized because he was too afraid of his reputation, of what his family would think, and ultimately what would happen to him. He was worried about himself, which is a hard thing. It's a hard thing for you to see someone who knows something's true and for them to reject it. And it happens a lot. It happens a lot. But that's something as a missionary in a European country, especially, I would say, southern Germany, Switzerland, and even Italy, that's one of the hugest barriers you have to overcome, is to realize even if they know it's true and don't accept it, I'm okay with it because it's their decision. Agency has always been the most important thing that we as missionaries have to respect. And it's hard. I mean, you devout to a person for 2-3 months, and you care about them and you love them, and sometimes they just don't want to change themselves. Yeah. However, it's better to know that someone believes in the church for personal reasons, even if they don't join the church, because then you know why it's so hard for the church to grow. It's not because it isn't truth. It's because people are very fixed in their ways and they don't change overnight. But it's reassuring. It really is. Because I think a lot of skeptics think that we just go there and we just don't help anyone, or because it's not true that no one wants to believe, or they just can't believe. But that's not how it is. Most of the people that you meet with and that you talk with on a regular basis, they will grow to appreciate the church. I met with one family where the wife was kind of the head hold. It was a strange situation, but we pretty much asked this woman, do you believe that Joseph Smith was a prophet of God? And she would say yes. Do you believe that the church was restored in modern day through the prophet Joseph Smith, and that the Book of Mormon is the Word of God? She would say yes. Then we'd ask, will you abide by this truth and be baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? She would say no. And mentally, it just doesn't make sense at all. It really is hard. Even today, it's difficult for me to understand this concept, but I really think it comes down to fear. Fear of abiding by something that is hard, which ironically is something that we all struggle with in one way or another. You might know that the church is true, but you can still struggle with a simple problem, and you just refuse to give it up. So, it just teaches me that humanity is all facing similar problems wherever you go. So, but just like any missionary, I have a deep love for the Swiss people. So, because I understand them now,